Howdy y'all, today my name is Brazen Marie.
Hello, my name is Dylan Rogers.
Hello, I'm Rachel Iverson.
Hi guys, my name is Mauro Meno Grusaligi.
Hi, my name is Gavin Andrus.
Hey guys, my name is Kirsten.
And my name is Shayla Wallace, and we will be presenting on Chapter 6, Romanticism to Realism.
Neoclassicism is the belief that human nature is the same in all times and in all places, and search to depict the universal truths, behaviors, and visual elements. Many settings were so normal, they depicted a general place for many productions. Neoclassicism tried to outrule supernatural elements and fantasy. It also started the Midwestern movement. Famous work of neoclassicism include The Death of Socrates by Jacques Louis David. He also painted The Death of Marat. Another famous piece is Venus Victrix from Antonio Canova. And then another famous piece I would love to share with you about is Lucina by John William Godward. Lucina is a famous art piece created by him. And he believed this lady had been of the Roman origin. The lady is wearing a simple gray sweater with a hoodie over a simple orange shirt. And the hoodie covers most of her head except for her face. The whole painting itself has a background of a stony wall, which portrays that this lady was of a noble and of a rich family. The whole painting is 50 centimeters high by 40 centimeters long, and it was actually painted by oils. I wouldn't really say the word painted per se, but oilinated, whatever works, right? And the oils just depict of the natural flavor that the painting processes from it, and the painting enlightens and shines down from it, if that makes any sense. Anyway, to conclude, just neoclassicism was just a big part in the arts and will always be of really good history and just something to look into.
Melodrama literally means music drama. It's a pop culture manifestation of Romanticism from the 19th century due to the Industrial Revolution. Parts of a melodrama are a villain, a virtuous protagonist, aka damsel in distress, a hero, a comic relief usually in one of the characters, insurmountable difficulties for the protagonist such as threats of life, happiness, or reputation, an elaborate event such as an earthquake, burning building, being tied to railroad tracks, and a colorful setting or scene. Ultimately, there is strict poetic justice, meaning evil is punished and good is rewarded. Movie examples are Raiders of the Lost Ark, Tomb Raider, Cradle of Life, and The Count of Monte Cristo. The Count of Monte Cristo was written in 1845 by Alexander Dumas. It originally required 20 acts and 2 nights to complete. It changed the way costumes and sets appeared on stage due to its magnificence. The transformation of melodrama over the years was that it went from simple to exotic. It used new inventions such as the camera, treadmills, moving panoramas, horsemanship, and special effects like lava oozing from a volcano. Maybe that's where Peter Brady got his idea from. Influential people were Frenchman Gilbert de Pierrecourt, Englishman Dion Boucicault, and American Augustin Daly. Thank you very much. I hope you've enjoyed this section on melodrama.
The advent of realism explains that Western civilizations during the Christian era not only believed the Bible, but used it as ultimate authority on values and moral principles. However, as time went on, These beliefs started to shift towards the late 19th century. Scientific developments were made, and certain biblical scriptures were put into questioning. Questioning like that is what began the advent of realism. One of these examples was that the Earth was thought to be around 6,000 years old due to the calculation that generations went back all the way to Christ, and so on. But later scientists discovered that it was much older, around millions or even billions of years old. One of the greatest controversies came from Charles Darwin. He had discovered two major theories. One, that all life forms of life had developed gradually from a common ancestry. Two, that this is evolution of the species involves the natural selection of those best adapted to specific environmental conditions. Another reformer was Sigmund Freud, a psychologist of the 20th century. He argued that the basic human instincts are aggression, sexuality, self-preservation, and procreation. With this idea, right and wrong do not become absolute. Realism at first entered the theater, but over time it has affected every era since.
Between the 1850s and 1870s, realism and naturalism, which was a more extreme form of realism, began to be introduced and recognized in the arts. Realist views were grounded in scientific outlook, the need to understand human behavior in terms of natural cause and effect. Realists limited their pursuit of knowledge to things that could be verified by the five senses. Unlike other movements of the past, realism sought to portray plays that were a faithful representation of life. Realist playwrights believed that character was determined in large part by heredity and environment, which was crucial for setting in each individual play. Playwrights wrote about contemporary subjects that were often taboo in society, such as poverty, disease, and prostitution. While these topics were viewed as unsavory, realists wanted to emphasize that things like poverty and disease were current in their society and should be changed. If audiences were uncomfortable with the subject matter of the plays, they needed to first look to change society before condemning those who sought to depict it truthfully. One play that was heavily filled with aspects of a realist mindset was A Doll's House, written by Henrik Ibsen in 1879. It was an explanation and realization of women's roles at the time, revolutionary for its time, and focused on this main character named Nora. Nora had made some decisions in her early life that were going to affect her life that she had in the setting of the play. She had made decisions that were not suitable for a woman at her time, and when her husband finds out about those decisions, rather than take responsibility for them like he should have, he just decided to condemn her and leave her on her own in society. She realizes that she doesn't like how she's being treated. She doesn't like that she feels like she's living in a doll's house, as she calls it, and she wants independence, which leads to the downfall of her marriage and these actions that she takes to become independent. This play was revolutionary because it wasn't meant to appeal to the audience's emotions. It wasn't meant to just follow the lines of what marriage should look like. It was meant to depict the harsh reality of a situation like Nora's. And that is what made A Doll's House and other plays of its time realist.
Zola and naturalism. Emile Zola was a naturalist, and she saw little effect of naturalism at the beginning of its time, and she had suggested that realists were more concerned with the theoretical effectiveness than actual truth to life. One of Zola's followers also suggested that to overcome this thought process and idea, one must think of a play as a slice of life, a teaching moment for the audience to ponder and to analyze. A naturalist did not have a ton of success in theater, only having a few plays. However, both naturalism and realism struck major social codes and values in the late 18th century and beginning of the 19th century, and laid a foundation for modernists to come.
Throughout time, someone took the charge of staging plays. Greeks usually had their playwrights take charge. Later, heads of companies had that responsibility. The present-day director came about during the 19th century. Before there was a director, most plays used the same few sets over and over again. Costumes were typically regular, everyday clothing. Actors weren't hired based on their skills, but their profession. When an actor had a speaking part, they went to the front of the stage, spoke their part, and then moved out of the way so the next speaker could take their place. Richard Wagner, a game changer, sought to create a master artwork. He used German myths for inspiration and set his dramas to music. He argued that with speech, the actor has control of how to speak. But with music, the director has control since the actor has to follow the tempo, pitch, and duration of the music. To help fulfill his goal, Wagner erected a new kind of theater building. In 1876, he got rid of the box, pit, and gallery arrangement. The seating was laid out in a fan-shaped pattern, which created equally good seeing and hearing conditions for all in the audience. He darkened the auditorium and had light only on stage. Perfect for opera. George II, Duke of Saxe-Meiningen, is the person considered to be the first director of our modern time. He took control of his theater. He wasn't always able to afford the best performers, but he had them practice so much that at times it took several months before it was the way he liked it. His company was well known for their crowd scenes. Each movement was staged with great precision.
Around the 1880 years, we get this kind of movement that helped the theater and the playwrights to not be censored, because at this time they couldn't realize they couldn't perform without permission. So many of these people didn't want to be subject of the censorship. So they created this movement, the independent theater. In the age of 1887, actually around that year, André Antoine from France, he created the first independent theater. He created this place because he couldn't have enough permissions to help the people to get involved with him, and there were all the time persons around them trying to stop this movement because of the censorship. So he created this independent theater, and he was very preoccupied and very focused about the environment of the theater at that time. So he exerted a lot of power in putting all of the realistic into the playwright. And the 1889 in Germany, a guy called Feuerbach, he created another independent theater movement in Germany, and he was very notable because he helped many new playwrights at that time to help them and put their plays on a stage. Guys like Hermann Sudermann and Gebhard Hauptmann, they started getting very famous because of the opportunity that this guy gave them. And in 1891 in London, the independent theater movement started. One of the most recognized stuff about the London theater is that they work with this guy called George Bernard Shaw, who was a playwright that emphasized a lot in the comedy with tragedy, because he wanted to make the people resist their values. And he wrote a lot of plays at that time, like Maya Barbara, Pygmalion, Superman, Arms and a Man, and this guy, he created most of the playwrights in the 20th century. And finally, but really important too, by those years in Russia, two guys called, one of them Konstantin Stanislavski and Vladimir Daschenko, they created the Russian independent theater movement, in which they developed many of the realistic playwrights that explain the situation of the people at that time after the war. And this was very recognized for the Russian government, because they helped the people to realize how was the real situation at that time. So the independent theater movement was an important tool for the playwrights and actors and directors at that time, because it led them to perform without censorship and help and explain the people the realistic of that time and help them to overcome this situation and this sad part. Thank you very much.
Stanislavski was the stage name of a Russian actor who created an approach to acting that had a large impact on acting in the 20th century. He believed that many shortcomings of theater were due to a lack of systematic approach. Stanislavski's goal was to create a system that would achieve the highest level of ensemble playing in production, clarify dramatic action, and emphasize the inner truth and life of a character. He wanted performers to act truthfully instead of mechanically. These were the basic premises of Stanislavski's system. The actor's body and voice must be trained and flexible so they can respond to all demands. Truthful acting requires that the actor be a skilled observer of human behavior and understand the relationship between a character's inner life and its external manifestation. Actors must project themselves into the world of the play and may learn to do so through the magic if. That is, through imagining how one would feel or act if one were the specific character in this specific situation. If actors are not merely to play themselves, they must understand a character's motivations and goals in each scene and in the play as a whole, as well as each character's relationship to all the other roles and the dramatic action. On stage, the actor should concentrate moment by moment as if events were happening spontaneously and for the first time. Stanislavski and his company succeeded in most of these goals, but he never viewed his system as complete. He recorded the first outlines of his system in 1909, and in 1912, he established a studio within the Moscow Art Theater Company to explore the system through training and performances by younger actors. He created additional studios to explore alternative approaches, but he was never fully satisfied with his system, and he continued to adapt and refine it until his death in 1938. Criticism of Stanislavski's system is usually on two main points. First, that the system is overly analytical, and second, that the system is ineffective for acting non-realistic dramas. Stanislavski was personally more comfortable with realistic acting, but he understood the need to master other styles and never stopped exploring alternative techniques. His later work emphasized the method of physical action through which he sought to simplify portions of his earlier analytical and physiological efforts by focusing on physical action. Despite its detractors, Stanislavski's system, or some variation of it, continues to be the most influential approach to actor training. Thank you.